Today, I would like to talk about a hidden mechanic in Dead by Daylight that has a massive impact on the game, but no one talks about it. That's because, unlike the gens popping, and perk choice, and which killer you picked, you can't see this mechanic, but you can absolutely feel it. And what is this magical metric that I am talking about? Cognitive load. You see, mental load is an overlooked resource in Dead by Daylight, and the killer role tends to bear a disproportionate share of it. Many survivor strategies are effective not because of the time they cost, but because of the attention they consume. Let's explore this topic together. So, it's story time! Picture this. One survivor is on hook, two are slugged, one has already escaped. And I am just stood there while one of the slug survivors crawls out of the map and escapes. What should have been an easy 3k turned into a 2k because I forgot that there were two exits. Yes, I forgot that there was a second exit that I wasn't protecting. How did we get there? My brain was full. The match had been intense and I was overwhelmed. The final mirrored illusion on the exit gate switch had just done me in. For a good minute, I was just stood there as a survivor wiggled its way towards the exit. And I was just stood at the other exit, having completely forgotten that the other door that the survivor could escape from even existed. I had just hit my mental load. This internal resource is just as important as any other resource in Dead by Daylight. And survivors are masters at taking advantage, often without realising it. So let's explore some of those things that can contribute towards mental capacity. So we're talking things like information processing, just all the things that you need to track. Decision frequency, how many meaningful choices you need to make per minute. Responsibility, how much a mistake is going to affect the outcome. Planning, thinking about the next 30 to 60 seconds ahead. Stress management, and recovering from setbacks without tilting. Killers, in particular, not only need to be constantly considering a large number of factors, but they're doing so throughout the entire trial. This is a concept known as continuous vigilance tasking. Survivors absolutely do have a lot to consider throughout the trial, but not only do they need to track fewer things, simply by virtue of the fact that there is one killer and 4 survivors, but they get unplanned breaks from the worst mental decision making when they're not being pressured due to not being in chase. We could break this down into mechanical, strategic, and cognitive categories to get a better feel for how many elements need to be considered, many of which overlap. Just as an example, from the information processing perspective, the killer needs to consider all 4 survivors, the 7 generators, the 16 survivor perks, plus their own 4 items, who had what, hook states, resources such as pallets, windows, and what tiles are in play. The killer power, some of which require multiple buttons in a specific order to use, while others are a lot easier. And this is not to mention everything that they don't know yet, such as who has Dead Hard or Decipher's Strike, also known as Will to Live, or maybe Unbreakable is on play, and they just haven't been revealed yet. But we'll talk about the phantom threats later. The killer has to consider all of this information throughout, while also making strategic decisions on what to do, how to react, and be cognizant that any wrong choice could cost the game, even if there was no way of knowing what the right decision was. Often while dealing with the stress and anxiety of wondering if the endgame chat is going to be abusive, because that's something to look forward to, coupled with the bad manners at the end gates by survivors trying to get under the killer's skin. Now, this isn't to say that survivors don't have a lot to think about, but not only do they have more information to hand, but they're more reactive with their decision-making challenges, dealing with fewer variables. They have less to consider in one go. For example, when the killer gets to worry about gen speeds while in chase, the survivor in chase only needs to focus on reading and reacting to the killer in that moment. Other survivors can consider if they're going to sit on the gen, or go to a rescue, or maybe consider a heal here and there. A rather low mental load till they get into the next chase. A chase which, if you're not a very good survivor like me, only lasts a few seconds. There's a good reason why I'm a killer main. It's definitely a skill issue. Now, I don't want to diminish the survivor's mental contribution to the trial, especially when in chase and having to manage their decision-making and pathing under immense time pressure, where the wrong decision can result in letting down the entire team as the killer smacks them to the ground. But I do want to be realistic. There are 4 survivors sharing that load to a single killer who has a lot more to keep track of. On top of the mechanical gameplay, there are the strategic considerations. Killers need to decide when to drop trace to pressure gens, trying to remember who has which perk, and see who is worth chasing. Did the Feng bring Spirit Burst this trial, or wasn't that in the last one? If they pick up, is there a pallet or a window nearby? Is there a flashlight carrying Survivor hovering about? If they pick up instead of slugging, what about the pathing to the hook? Will it get saboed? Will they have to walk past a locker? Did someone put head on? And that's just trying to get someone to a hook, because the gens always have to be at the forefront of the killer's mind. Macro and micromanagement is a constant balance for the killer. All of these thoughts, all at the same time. Sure, survivors' decisions shift and change, but many of them are reactive. The decisions come spaced out rather than all at once, whereas the killers don't get a pause button on gen speeds while they mentally reset. And this is a key point. Survivors pressure the killer's attention budget. Survivors don't have to make the killer make bad decisions. They often just have to make the killer make too many decisions in order to win. There are many ways survivors can weaponize attention, such as creating noise distractions by fast vaulting repetitively, running around the hook, flashlight clicking or binding, consistently appearing in the killer's peripheral vision, running into the chase path. Just so many things. Body blocking en route to a hook doesn't just waste the killer's limited time to successfully get the survivor on it, but it causes the killer to have to make additional decisions on how to react. This is known as attentional capture, where the actions of the survivors try to take up brain space, whether they realise it or not. But survivors' bad manners contribute a lot to this mental space in many killers' minds. The little bob after a pallet isn't just to be annoying, it's mental warfare. I've had this happen to me. Not BMing, because I interpret the little bobs as them thanking me for my attention, which somewhat takes the power out of the BMing. But anyway, I have been in multiple instances of me chasing one person, only for multiple other survivors to run across my path and completely confuse me. Suddenly I don't know who I was chasing, where I am, who is where. I'm spun around and everyone escapes, leaving me looking a bit embarrassed and my mind just spinning. The best survivor teams aren't the ones that waste the killer's time. They're the ones that waste the killer's attention. Something Survive with Friends, aka Swifts, have a particular advantage in. No wonder we've anecdotally heard of killers saying after a match, "I am so mentally exhausted." So before we discuss the future implications of where the game is headed, let's first look at the previously mentioned phantom threats. We've all seen it, or experienced this ourselves. Questioning if a perk is in play. The killer chases down a survivor and pauses. They don't strike, not straight away. Dead hard. They are waiting for the survivor to activate this limited time perk that allows them to absorb a hit and run off. A well-timed dead hard can make the difference between a down and an escape. Sometimes it can make the difference in the outcome of the entire trial. Or the survivor jumps into a locker straight off hook. Now the killer has to make a choice. Grab them out the locker and potentially get hit with a decisive strike, also known as will to live, where the survivor can leap off the killer's shoulder and escape. Or the killer waits to ensure a full minute has passed before attempting the grab, which may mean multiple gens could pop in that time. Or the killer walks away. I have seen killers walk away only for the survivor to have been bluffing. But the killer always has to be aware, always has to be on the lookout for threats, like flashlights that may not even be there. These are phantom threats, things that might happen that the killer simply doesn't know yet. And they take up an awful lot of mental capacity, along with the annoyance when the killer forgets, only to actually be a victim of these perks. And the survivors don't even have to do anything to apply this mental pressure on the killer. When you first start the game, there is a lot you don't know. But over time, and with experience, knowledge grows. Not only that, but many veteran killers find patterns and have experience in how to deal with many of these situations, so the mental load can be slightly lessened. Muscle memory takes over in some instances, especially with killer powers, to ease that mental burden. But I think the worst time for killer's mental capacity is that middle ground, when the killer knows enough to be aware of the threats and survivors but hasn't developed the experience and muscle memory to deal with them yet. I think a large part of the killer community sits in this space. I think this mental load issue is a large contributor to killer anxiety. But I am CuriousEep. I make Dead by Daylight discussion videos like this one. I do also do gameplay demonstrations and experiments. If you enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing to be able to find my videos easier in future, or pop along to the live streams on Twitch. Thanks. This issue is only going to get worse. As Dead by Daylight expands, there are going to be more killer powers to master, more perks to consider, more add-ons to think about, more maps to learn, more, always more. The mental load is increasing. The mental budget to manage it is not. What can we do about this? Well, firstly, remember, you are human. I know killers often aren't thought of as being people, but at the end of the day, you are, in fact, a real person behind a screen, and you have limits. And that is okay. Except you are not perfect. You will make mistakes. You will get overwhelmed at times. This is not your fault. This is not a fault, but a feature of your mind to protect you. Getting overwhelmed means your brain is doing a good job of keeping you sane. Good brain. You will get better if you let yourself make mistakes. The only way to get good is to let yourself be bad. Trust you will learn. Trust the muscle memory will develop in time. Trust you will recognise patterns and have a better way to react to them in future. Trust yourself. This is helped if you reflect on times that you felt like you didn't do as well as you would liked. Consider what you'd do differently next time, so you'll be more prepared for it when it happens again. Recording your games and reviewing them can really help, but this is not required. Remember, you made the best decision you could with the information you had at the time. Sure, in hindsight, it might have been the wrong decision, but that's not how time works. Keep priority in mind. Sure, there might be a survivor nearby waiting to flashlight save their friend, but sometimes it's best to grab that survivor off the ground as soon as possible and just take the risk instead of spending time checking to see if it's safe first. Sometimes you just gotta take the risk. It's just a game. It's not the end of the world if you lose. Over time, you'll learn what information matters and what's to ignore. That annoying banging in the background as the survivor fast bolts back and forth, you might find distracting, but you should never be distracted by it and go and give chase. Don't chase people who are demanding of attention. You control you, not them. I'd also love to hear other suggestions in the comments. There's loads more ideas that you could try, but I wouldn't want to exceed the attention that you have already graced me with while watching this video. But in summary, this might look like on the surface like a moan about who has it worse, killers or survivors and Dead by Daylight, and okay, I guess it kind of is. But also, it's a deeper discussion into a topic that isn't really talked about in the Dead by Daylight community, but it's really important. Killers are people, and people only have so much brain power. No amount of experience will change the fact that a human can only deal with so much information and decisions at a time. So remember, be kind to yourself next time you make a mistake. You have to deal with a lot when playing this game. And I hope this helps someone. But in the meantime, remember, you got this and we got you. Till next time, bye!